You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Man, I saw the news that Desmond Ricks went into the portal and after former five-star after one season at Alabama. And LSU was so hot after him a year ago, you can't help but just immediately think, all right, they're going to go after him now. And it looked good, and then it didn't. Shea Dixon from On3, the Bengal Tiger, joins us now as he does most every Tuesday here at the top of Hour 2. Shea, we appreciate you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt? Thanks for having me.
Of course, always. What happened here with the Rick situation? What can you tell us?
He entered the portal after kind of meeting with Bama staff and talking about things and what it would take to keep him, and ends up going into the portal and pretty quickly had said, hey, look, these are the teams I'm looking at, and he said LSU was one of them. It makes sense. He was looking at LSU a year ago, and he really went to LSU and chose Bama, and I think after some conversations on Monday night, just kind of about what it would take to get him there and what all he was looking for, he was going to set up a visit. LSU said, we're good, kind of, and he then confirmed it and said, I'm good then, and his only visit now is A&M. He's on A&M's campus right now. So in the NIL world, make that what you want in terms of kind of how kids are talking about when they get into the portal, what they're looking for, and I think obviously right now he's banking his value off of what he was ranked in hhigh school, given for Alabama this year. He played fewer than 10 snaps all season, just 2 games played.
So I don't want to misunderstand, but I also don't want to press. But essentially, Desmond Ricks goes in the portal. You kind of make it known what it's going to take to get you, and schools are either willing to play ball or they're not. And apparently LSU wasn't. Am I oversimplifying that?
Yeah, I think that's simplified enough. I think from talking to people around a couple of schools and then around the Ricks recruitment, it was the same conversation he had with Alabama. And whenever they said, okay, well, then go ahead and transfer out. So I think Alabama and LSU are in similar spots here until how they answered the request.
You know, Shea, I know there were a lot of LSU fans that pushed back on me when I said it, but it's a similar thing that happened with Zalance Hurd. I mean, these guys are very highly recruited out of high school, but how can you really justify whatever their dollar number is if that person's going to be a backup and haven't done it on this level? So someone may pay it, and this is the culture that we have in college sports right now, but that's what it is. So it doesn't seem like this was the case here, but I am curious, Shea, ear to ground, what you're hearing about LSU's staff and the impact that may be having on recruiting either out of the portal or the high school ranks, that being that the staff still isn't finished?
I mean, outside of portal, and really right now, you're coming up against the window where the only kids who are still entering the portal are kids who are on Bama or on Washington, who had head coaching changes that then activated that 30-day window where they could hit the portal. Other than that, they've seen everybody that's out there. It's one of those things, like for instance, right now, a DB coach is what we're waiting on defense to be named or hired, or 2 DB coaches, whatever direction they go. A corner and a safeties coach is what they typically have had. And there's only one guy left in the high school crop that they're recruiting that plays DB. That's Terry Bussey. He told us at On3 today, told Sam Spiegelman, that his visit to LSU will be January 31st, and then he'll sign the next week. He's currently committed to A&M. He's been committed to A&M for a while. He just didn't sign there in December because they had staff changes. He just wanted to see how everything shook out. So if you're worried about, like, are we going to lose recruits over this? Well, there's no one really out there right now beyond that one guy. And if he's not visiting for 2 more weeks, that's plenty of time for a coaching search to continue. We saw in just a week span, then get Bo Davis and Blake Baker and Peoples. So I would guess that by the 31st, whenever a guy like Bussey, a 5-star DB, actually makes his way to campus, who is for this year, like who is a senior, who needs to decide, that a DB coach will be in place. So I think they're fine there. And regardless, I think that we all operate under the understanding that at this level, you're not rushing a coaching hire over any other factors like 1 or 2 players being out there. They can obviously talk to other people on staff or kind of get a feel for the direction you might go. But I do think that within 2 weeks, by the time a notable senior gets on campus that plays DB for a visit, that they'll have, coaches in place.
Okay. It's interesting, Shea, because a year ago, I reference this often, but the Brian Polian change didn't come until late February last year. So it was after the February signing day.
Yeah, remember, Saban didn't hire an offensive or defensive coordinator until late February a year ago, whenever Kevin Steele and Tommy Reese were named coordinators. So everyone sort of moves at their own time frame and kind of are handcuffed by fans wondering every day, is today the day? And, if, player X is going to be available or not. I think it's just one of those things where you want to get the hire right, then everything else falls in place.
Shea, I know we talk about it a bunch, but I'm curious how much that may impact the whole recruiting process, where that timeline. Like, what do coaches let me say it another way. When coaches are talking to recruits, Brian Kelly, his staff, they're talking to recruits right now, and there aren't position coach or OC, whatever field. What kind of conversation are they having with a recruit about those openings?
I think typically it'll be, hey, look, we're going to go out and hire the best guy that's out there, and then you point more towards the foundation of, look, this is what we built, this is what we're working towards, and other coaches on staff can chip in. I'll give you an example. Look, they flipped five-star Dominic McKinley from A&M, and they didn't have a D-line coach. They did it on January 1st, and he's the number one player in Louisiana, and he joins the class with nobody in place. Now, whenever they did have somebody in place a couple of weeks later, it was Bo Davis, someone who he was recruited to Texas, who a lot of people thought he was going to end up in Texas with Bo Davis. So do I think that Brian Keller goes, like, if you're trying to get a deal with Bo Davis done, you're not going into the living room of a 17-year-old and telling him that's probably the worst idea. Even if he's a five-star, those kids will repeat something and then it gets out. Right. So I know people often think, like, oh, did the coaches tell the players who are the recruits who they're hiring? Again, no, the last person you would tell a secret to would be a 17-year-old. So the news would spread fast. But that only kind of solidified things when McKinley then took his official visit this past weekend. Bo Davis moved into town Friday, and here we are. Oh, and my dog approves that. I don't know if that's a more D-tackle thing or if she's just happy about a five-star. But
your dog's fired up.
It's sort of, for talking five-star defensive tackles, that's what gets LSU fans going right now, a position of need. But having Bo Davis on campus for kind of his official visit, which is just a couple weeks after his commitment, I think that really solidified things. So it's tough to say kind of what exactly they'll tell guys, but more often than not, it's, hey, stay patient, look, here's our plan. And really, and it's kind of hard to do, but it's the old adage of commit to the school, not the coach or the head coach or your position coach, because all that changes way too often. And you hear guys talk about it, especially if you're a Louisiana guy. Like, I'm going to LSU because it's LSU, not necessarily because I love one coach on the staff type of thing.
Yeah. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon, on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Two other things, Shea. One is numbers. Where is the roster right now, as best you know, as far as numbers and how many spots that they even still have available?
Right. They're over the 85-man limit right now, but you don't need to be at that 85 or fewer scholarship players until fall camp. So there'll be some attrition, I think, again in the spring. We'll see guys enter the portal after the spring window and spring practices end. When spring practices end, and the portal window opens for that 15 days, guys will have a feel for where they're at on the depth chart. If they say, hey, look, I need to go ahead and head somewhere else, that can free up roster numbers. And then another thing that a lot of schools are doing that, which is completely under the, it's not illegal, but if you're over that 85, you can prefer walk-on players and then have that set up for some sort of NIL deal where essentially your scholarship's paid. And if it's an in-state kid, it's in-state tuition, even less of a hit to you. So that's what I've seen a lot of SEC schools who are over the 85, and then you kind of dig around. They're like, yeah, but this player will really just be PWOs, and they'll have an NIL deal that'll supplement their tuition or their room and board or books or whatever it might be, and you can kind of work it out that way. But the goal is 85. There are a few over, but that's really kind of on pace for what everybody expected between guys who are going to leave for the draft and guys who are going to stick around for the spring and kind of see what the new staff looks like and maybe if that gave them a new lease on playing time, or if they felt like they were still buried, and then they would head elsewhere after the spring.
Shea, last thing for you. Targets that remain, either players that you know of or specific positions that LSU would like to add, either in this portal window or likely after spring when the next portal window opens?
I still think corner is one. I'm not going to, glance or skip right by that after the Desmond Ricks conversation. I mean, it's obvious that, look, they do, between corner and safety, they have more than 20 guys on scholarship, Matt. So they've got numbers. The issue is a lot of these guys have been hurt for multiple years or, just haven't gotten playing time yet. We saw some true freshmen this year. They just signed 6, 7 guys at the DB spot. So it's a big room. I think they could still use one corner that's got some experience if it's out there and it makes sense. But the big one will be defensive tackle. And honestly, right now, there's one guy at Texas who did not show up as an early enrollee as planned, and he said, hey, look, I'm looking to get out of my letter of intent. Bo Davis obviously recruited him there. If he does get out of his letter of intent, it would kind of be an LSU-Florida battle. This is a top 150 defensive tackle that I'm talking about. They're a top 150 player, but a top 15 defensive tackle. And then even JUCO. They've already signed one, but they've got their eyes on another JUCO prospect who plays defensive tackle. He's starting to get looks and is going to graduate in the spring and then be able to enroll or bounce back to a 4-year college this summer. So they've got options on both those fronts. As for the portal, I've heard buzz. The big thing to watch now will be this. Guys who are getting older at their program, they're about to graduate, they'll stick it out during the spring, graduate, and then leave after the spring. And it can be in the portal window or not, because grad transfers can leave at any point. They're not restricted to portal windows. So I would keep an eye out for some first-time transfers at the graduate level at the defensive tackle spot. I think that's one they really want to address. And now that Bo Davis is here, they can go about addressing it.
He is Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Make sure you're following him there on Twitter at Shea Dixon. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't like the dogs barking, don't get a dachshund. That would be my suggestion to y'all. So.
I don't mind the dog at all, man. That's just part of live radio. Thank you, Shea.
All right, Matt. We'll talk soon.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.